not lie to you, I promise.
Alright, pardon the delay. Welcome everyone to the 23rd installment of the AVC show. I am none other than Angry Vegan Cyclist. Well, thank you to Alcoholic Gaming for all the topics. I didn't even have to look for topics myself today. And there's some pretty decent ones. Sorry I didn't announce that last week's show was canceled. I just didn't have shit. I just had fuck all to talk about. And I just didn't care to. I mean, like, what's even the point? But now we got a whole lineup of great topics. So, yeah, I hope I will make up for anyone who was disappointed by this. But then again, how much do I really care? I don't know. I guess I hate to admit that I'm not as excited about doing the show as I normally am. But then again, it's hard to get excited about a show if there's no topics. Because I'm not here to just waste your time, nor my own. But yeah. Anyway, let's, I guess I'll cut the bullshit this time. So, let's just hurry up and get through this. I got other stuff I want to do today. But, yeah. Oh, well, this is... Okay. Let me take the cover off. Okay, alright. So, I know this is last week's news, but it's still worth covering. Actually, no, this isn't last week. This was just a couple days ago. But it's an ongoing topic, obviously. So, in case the news tries to memory... So, okay. So, before we go on, just take a moment to appreciate... Okay. So, look, everyone has skeletons in their closet. Every politician ever in history has something they're trying to hide or trying to justify or just generally wants people to forget. Literally everybody. No one is clean. And so the news just went nonstop criticizing Trump for every single just fucking farting or using the bathroom, or they wouldn't shut up about Rushgate or Stormy Daniels. I mean, they're clearly looking for ways to get rid of him. And then I don't know about you, but this was like this is probably almost 2 weeks old, right? So the news talked about it very briefly. Then all of a sudden, they just immediately switched to that fucking submarine at the bottom of the Titanic. A bunch of fucking dumb rich people who got themselves killed. Oh my god! Wow, that's such big news, and everyone's immediately obsessed with that. So this just tells you how distractible the average person is, how short their attention spans are, and the news again is trying to shine the spotlight away from this topic we're looking at right now. being cocaine being found in the West Wing of the White House. Why? I mean, there is some involvement about, there's some whispers, rumors. I can't confirm. This is not. I mean, I don't know. I'm just some asshole on YouTube. Don't listen to me. But Hunter Biden has had a problem with drugs, chiefly cocaine and meth. No. I'm sorry. Maybe just crack. I don't know. Whatever. He's a druggie, and it sounds like a lot of people out there, and you know who you are just trying to hope that you just forget that. So I don't want that to happen. So that's why we're talking about it today. So back to the article. First on CNN. Secret Service concludes cocaine investigation. No suspect identified. Fucking sure. Yeah, whatever. Written by Jeremy Diamond from CNN. Updated 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, July 13th, 2023. So let's see what this video has for us.
All right, we do have some breaking news. Lab tests just back on the powdery substance found at the White House over the weekend have come back positive for cocaine. This substance was found. It briefly forced an evacuation there. Preliminary tests said it was cocaine. Now these other lab tests have come back. Now we should note that President Biden was at Camp David as this first unfolded over the weekend. He returned to Washington Tuesday morning. Let's go to the White House. CNN's Priscilla Alvarez is there. This does raise a whole lot of questions about how the substance got there, Priscilla.
It certainly does. And one of the big questions here is how it entered the White House to begin with. Now, as you mentioned, a person familiar is now confirming to our Kevin Liptak that the lab tests have shown that it is positive for cocaine. Sources had previously told CNN that field tests in the moment had determined that it was possibly cocaine. We now know that that is the case. Now, where it was found was in the West Wing, in a common area, not an individual office, and also an area where private group-led tours pass through. We also know that the substance was found near where the guests are asked to leave their cell phones before proceeding into the West Wing. Now, of course, this did prompt that brief evacuation on Sunday evening, and they called in Washington, D.C. Fire Department, which deployed their hazmat suits to try to determine what this was. And now, since Sunday, we are learning that it is indeed cocaine. Now, again, this is part of an ongoing investigation. We're trying to get more from the Secret Service as to, again, how this got into the White House and who brought it in. All of those questions still lingering, but at the very least, those lab tests are now in. John?
An investigation being led by the Secret Service, Priscilla, and we should note, I mean, clearly they know everyone who goes into that building. It is a known quantity.
That's right. I come in and out of this building on a regular basis, and you do have to pass, just like you would at the airport, through security. And so the question now is going to be how this came to be, and Secret Service is the one who's going to be fielding those questions.
Trump, who has said we should note, and you remember the...
So, okay, I'll just read the article first. All right, so CNN, the Secret Service has concluded its investigation to this small bag of confirmed cocaine found at the White House and has been unable to identify a suspect, according to a statement from U.S. Secret Service. Secret Service officials combed through security systems and indexed several hundred individuals who entered the West Wing in the days preceding the discovery and were unable to identify a suspect, according to the USSS statement. The Secret Service said FBI lab results from the packaging found insufficient DNA and could not retrieve any fingerprints. Quote, therefore, the Secret Service is not able to compare evidence against the known pool of individuals, a statement from the U.S. Secret Service said. Investigators were also unable to identify the particular moment or day in which the baggie was left inside the West Wing cubby near the lower level entrance where it was discovered. Quote, there was no surveillance video footage found that provided investigative leads or any other means for investigators to identify who may have deposited the found substance in the area, and the agency statement said. Without physical evidence, the investigation would not be able to single out a person of interest from the hundreds of individuals who passed through the vestibule where the cocaine was discovered. At the time, the Secret Service's investigation was closed due to a lack of physical evidence. A source familiar with the investigation told CNN that the leading theory remains that it was left by one of the hundreds of visitors who entered the West Wing that weekend for tours and were asked to leave their phones inside those cubbies. The cubbies where the small bag of cocaine was found is a blind spot for surveillance cameras, according to a source familiar with the investigation. While there's surveillance around where the bag was found, cameras are not trained directly on the West Wing cubbies near the lower-level entrance where it was discovered, and the source said making it difficult to identify who left the bag behind. Quote, we've been briefed by the Secret Service on the outcome of their investigation and are reviewing the information, White House Principal Deputy Press Secretary Olivia Dalton said in a statement. CNN previously reported that cocaine was found in a cubby near the ground floor entrance to the West Wing, where staff-led tours of the White House passed through on their way into the building. Visitors entering the West Wing for tours are asked to leave their phones in those cubbies, which can also be used by staff who cannot bring their phones into an SCIF or sensitive compartmented information facility, where classified materials are handled. The cubbies are located near the Situation Room, which has not been used for months due to ongoing renovations. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre expressed confidence last week that Secret Service will, quote, get to the bottom of the incident. The discovery of a powdery substance by Secret Service personnel conducting routine rounds of the building have prompted a brief evacuation as part of what the Secret Service described as precautionary closures. The Secret Service had the House Oversight and Accountability Committee on the case Thursday morning. Leaving that briefing, GOP representative Tim Burchett told CNN that the case was, quote, the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. He said that the bag contained less than 1 gram of cocaine. Quote, y'all have been to the White House. You give your social security number, I'm sure they have facial identification and everything else, and to say that they don't know who it is, to me, somebody should lose their job over this. A lot of people, he said. He added, quote, somebody walks in the White House, the most secure building in the United States of America, in the world actually, and can place something in a locker. What if it was a biological entity? What if it was something that had an emergent that would, mature over a few days, and it could, it's just a lot of questions. GOP Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene told reporters that the Secret Service informed members in their briefing that it had narrowed its list of suspects down to 500 people. Greene, who said part of the briefing was classified, said she asked Secret Service if they would drug test those individuals, and she said their answer was no. The list includes a mixture of staffers and others on a tour, according to GOP Representative Lauren Boebert, but the Secret Service would not provide specifics. Boebert said the cocaine was found in a locker number 50 and that the key to that locker was missing. A number of members raised issues with the locker system and how it needs to be more secure. Republican Representative Nancy Mace said the Secret Service had to get visitor logs and other information from the Biden administration through Presidential Records Act because the locker where the cocaine was found is under the jurisdiction of the Biden administration. The Secret Service spokesman said Thursday that, quote, small amounts of marijuana were twice found at the White House last year. No arrests were made in those cases either. Quote, no one was arrested in these incidents because the weight of the marijuana confiscated did not meet the legal threshold for federal charges or D.C. misdemeanor criminal charges, as the District of Columbia has decriminalized possession. Secret Service spokesman Stephen Kopech said in a statement, quote, the marijuana was collected by officers and destroyed. Oh, sure. So, just an addendum to this last sentence. I mean, quote, marijuana was collected by officers and destroyed. Really now? Really now? Just think about all the drugs and child porn that, like, the federal officers, like the FBI, quote-unquote, collects and destroys. I mean, really? Just think about it. I mean... Anyway, okay, so I guess it is true. I know a lot of people watching this show would probably think, well, it's definitely Hunter Biden. You can't guarantee that. But how do they even get there in the first place? I personally think that something greater is afoot. and something deliberate, not just like it can't just be that many mistakes. Like, think obviously, like the Republican representatives who spoke earlier. I mean, they have a good point. Like, how is the security so sloppy that they let this through? So I mean, whether or not it's Hunter Biden, it just doesn't matter. It just shows. I mean, it's a lesson that people should know already, but don't. That everybody's corrupt. Everyone's full of shit to some degree. And maybe there's some parties that happen in the White House that people don't know about. Some like Jordan Belfort level parties. So, yeah, Wolf of White House right there. I mean, imagine. Oh, jeez. Oh, man. Yeah, think about it. I mean, who could it be? Let's play a game of Clue. Oh my god, yeah, that's the American government for you. Anyway, I guess here's additional. Okay, so this is the original. Okay, now let's compare and contrast the new report versus the old report. Let's see if there's any bullshit in between. So this article is from July 4th, and Independence Day, land of the free, home of the brave, right? Let's see what this the video says.
Thank you, Asma. Good. 4 minutes remaining on the Gemini. Thank you, Asma. Good. 4 minutes remaining on the Gemini. Narcan is doing a possibility of heroin opiate, amphetamine, or DMA/ecstasy. Amphetamine or DMA/ecstasy.
So I think it's MDMA or ecstasy, but I guess you can go click the video yourself. Anyway, let's keep watching.
Good. Correction record has that we have a result on the Gemini. We have a yellow bar stating cocaine, hydrochloride, path number 53-21-4. Gemini's results are no match found, with a red bar, no match found in the library.
Alrighty, here we are in
So yeah, there's all kinds of drugs in there. Geez, you got weed, you got X, you got cocaine. What the fuck else? So the article starts. The quote unknown item found in the West Wing forced a brief evacuation of the White House Sunday night and drew a hazmat team to the executive mansion. Initially tested positive for cocaine, according to officials in a dispatch call made that evening. Quote, we have a yellow bar stating cocaine hydrochloride, a DC firefighter stated in a radio communication at 8:49 p.m. Sunday. Quote, bag it up and take it out, the firefighter told the hazmat team. The initial dispatch call stated that the white powdery substance found in the residence library on the ground floor of the building. However, officials familiar with the incident told the Post that the purported cocaine was found in a holding area in the West Wing that is accessible to the White House staff and guests. DC Fire and EMS did not immediately respond to a request to clarify the discrepancy. President Biden, 80 years old, was at Camp David at the time of the incident, as was his son Hunter, who was admitted to a past crack cocaine addiction. The 53-year-old was part of the family party return to Washington for the presidential retreat for July 4th festivities later in the day. And so I guess here's like a little informatics. So what happened? Okay, a white powdery substance was located in the West Wing Sunday evening by a Secret Service agent doing a routine patrol. The White House was evacuated and DC Fire and EMS was called. An initial test of the substance came back positive for cocaine. Where in the West Wing was it found? Officials familiar with the incident say it was located in a holding area that is accessible to both the White House staff and the guests. Who works in the West Wing? The West Wing's administrative center of the American presidency includes the Oval Office, Cabinet Room, and press briefing room. Typically, the West Wing also houses the offices of key employees, including the White House Chief of Staff, Press Secretary, Communications Director, and National Security Advisor. Who has access to the West Wing? While the White House is open for public tours, albeit only by request and only if scheduled through a member of Congress, the West Wing is a more controlled environment and only accessible via personal invitation or connection with a staffer. Still, more than 4,000 West Wing tours are recorded as having been taken in March. The most recent month, 4 visitor logs are available. Okay, the rest of the article states the West Wing as the administrative heart of the presidency. It includes the Oval Office, the offices of executive staff, the Cabinet Room, the Roosevelt Room, and the press briefing room. The Secret Service told the Post that the agency, quote, does not comment on an active investigation, with spokesman Anthony Guglielmi Jesus. Later stating in a statement that further tests will be conducted to confirm that the substance is indeed cocaine. Authorities are trying to determine how the substance got into the White House after a Secret Service agent found the powder during a routine sweep of the premises. Okay, so I guess there's no too big of a gap here. Okay, this is about the same as insistence that Biden wasn't Biden or Hunter. It was a oh, insisting that Biden or his son were there at the time. But fucking we'll see. News of the positive test prompted mockery from conservative commentators already outraged at the kid gloves treatment his first son has received from much of the media. This comes from the New York Post, by the way. Quote, kid gloves treatment. Interesting. The story about a bag of cocaine found in the president's library about a father's love for his son, tweeted Spectator contributing editor Stephen L. Miller. This fucking... oh, this is... oh, this is good shit. Oh, man. 357 former intelligence chiefs sign open letter blaming Russians for cocaine in White House library, snarked Wall Street Journal. Film critic Kyle Smith, referencing Spies Who Lie letter who used to suppress reporting on his first son. Oh. God, oh, shit. Quote, come on, Hunter would never lose track of an important personal item, Smith added in another tweet. Some users posted memes depicting Biden's scion as Al Pacino's Tony Montana character from the movie Scarface, where others modified the game of Clue to place Hunter Biden with the 8-ball in the library. While the Secret Service and other law enforcement entities have often called to investigate suspicious packages on the perimeter of the White House complex, it is far rarer for the building to be cleared, either due to potentially hazardous materials or other incidents. In September 2020, letters containing ricin, a lethal substance, were mailed to the Trump White House but were intercepted by investigators before reaching the residence. Jeez. In 2017, an intruder hopped the White House fence while carrying a backpack and made it to within feet of the residence before he was apprehended. The Secret Service said he was not armed and the backpack contained no hazardous materials. On September 11, 2001, the Secret Service ordered staffers to evacuate the White House after receiving a report that one of the 4 hijacked planes was bound for Washington. In the wake of those attacks, anthrax scares led to the evacuation of the offices of U.S. senators and the Supreme Court. A separate ricin-laced letter was sent to the White House in 2003, but was also intercepted without incident. On a less serious note, the executive mansion underwent a deep clean on the day of Biden's inauguration in deference to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Ongoing after how many fucking years? Get the fuck out of here. Oh my god. What the... Shut the fuck up. Anyway. So, yeah, two more. Oh my god, 2 more pieces of fucking... Oh, Jesus. Oh, this is so good. Rumors circulated in April that Hunter Biden may have been crashing at the White House for a time to avoid being served with court papers by the mother of his love child. Oh, wow. In his memoir, Beautiful Things, Hunter detailed his years-long battle with cocaine addiction, in which he said intensified after the death of his brother, Beau, in 2015. Many photos and text messages and other communications revealing his cocaine abuse ended up on the first son's now infamous laptop, including recently surfaced images of Hunter Biden smoking crack behind the wheel of his car in a residential Arlington, Virginia neighborhood in the summer of 2018. Last month, the first son reached a probation-only plea deal with the Justice Department for tax misdemeanors and entered into a pretrial diversion agreement for lying on a federal gun purchase form about his drug use. If a judge approves, Hunter Biden will likely serve 2 years of probation and be barred from owning a firearm again. He also must remain sober. This comment says, further testing will come back as flour, talcum powder, or Parmesan cheese. Oh my god. Jesus. Okay, so, yeah. So on one hand, I mean, guilt by association, just because even though Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, sleepy Uncle Joe is half asleep and probably knee-deep in dementia and then sniffs little, like, prepubescent girls for entertainment, he's got a lot of fucking problems. With that said, to say that he's a druggie like his son, it's guilt by association. On the other hand, I mean, the fact that they're even that Hunter Biden says, or it's stated in this article, that he quote unquote crashes at the White House frequently. I mean, it's grounds enough for suspicion, right? So, you know, do you expect the government not to be corrupt? Do you expect people in the government not to be full of shit? That's on you. This is April news. Now this is too old. We're not going to read that. So, yeah, that's that. I think I think you guys get the point. Anyway, so in other news, let's just talk about here's some other things that Alcoholic Gaming posted in there. Since he posted it, since it is finally some of the fucking listeners are posting some topics, that's all we'll do this week. So from this journal named JaneJaneJane.com. Okay, well this is 3-year-old news. What the fuck, Alcoholic Gaming? Why did you put this here, AG? Anyway, so article is titled California reduces penalties for pedophilia with quote willing kids. Now, this kind of sounds like clickbait, like a clickbait headline. Do I think it's that explicit? It's not going to be that explicit. That just flies in the face of too many people who will oppose it. So, however, the fact that they have anything to grasp at, even if it's just a few straws, is already rather concerning. So let's look at it anyway. Subheadline: California has earned its reputation as a haven for sexual perverts. This latest attempt to legalize sexual acts against children is sick beyond comprehension. Those who support homosexual behavior, as long as they don't hear or see it, this is what you get. Shame on you. So, yeah, a bit biased, to say the least. With that said, again, where did the straws come from? There has to be something to grasp. From a source from, what is WND? What? Oh, so it's just a right-leaning news source. Okay, well, fair enough. Okay. Article starts, California lawmakers have sent a bill to the desk of Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom that would reduce the penalties for adults who have oral or anal sex with a, quote, willing minor child if the offender is no more than 10 years older than the victim. So the objective is to, quote, end blatant discrimination against young LGBT people engaged in consensual activity. According to the sponsor, Democratic state Senator Scott Wiener, who is openly gay. SB 145 passed by the Senate on Monday. Okay, let's see if there's any official confirmation of this. Wow, okay. So there's something here. I guess we can read that later. I'm not going to read this in front of you because we're not going to, we just don't have that time. But I guess well, here's the URL. I probably won't put the links in the description because I'm fucking lazy. Yeah. Again, it's just a bill. Just a bill setting out the steps, waiting to become law, but well, I guess maybe we can follow up about this because this was 3 years ago. Wiener claims the bill is, quote, about treating everyone equally under the law. Quote, discrimination against LGBT people is simply not the California way, he said, according to the San Francisco Examiner. Quote, these laws were put into place during a more conservative and anti-LGBT time in California's history. They have ruined people's lives and made it harder for them to get jobs, secure housing, and live productive lives. It is time we update these laws to treat everyone equally. Under current law, judges can decide whether or not adults who have, quote, penile vaginal intercourse with minors close to their age must register as a sex offender. Oh my God. Okay, so before we go on, okay, we already have something like that. And so I guess the leftist argument to be like, oh, well, we have Romeo and Juliet laws. I mean, this isn't really that big of a step. So, in all fairness, okay, let's say Romeo and Juliet laws. Let's not forget. Without Romeo and Juliet laws, a 17-year-old and an 18-year-old could have sex. And then the 18-year-old is now a sex offender. So generally people say, well, if you have sex with a minor, you're a pedophile. Okay, well, a lot of high school couples have sex where one is 17 and one is 18. So now the moral question here is, okay, well, does this 18-year-old need to be sent to jail as a sex offending pedophile? Oh my God. His whole fucking life is ruined because his girlfriend's 1 year younger than him. I think most people will say no. Now, let's move the year down and back. Let's move a couple years back. So let's say 17 to 16-year-old. Okay, nobody cares because they're both horny teenagers. I mean, who hasn't lost their virginity in high school? Now, okay, let's try 18 and 16. Is that really that big of a deal? Probably similar answer because, well, 18-year-olds are just teenagers given legal rights. I know for a fact I wasn't much more mature than I was at 17 when I was 18. Okay, how about 15 and 18? A little dicey. 14, 18 is pushing it. 13 and 18 is where I would say, okay, that's a little too much. But here's the funny part: when the 14-year-old becomes, and 4 years later, so 14 is now 18, and 18 is now 22. 18-year-old and 22-year-old, nobody cares. So this is all an emotional question. So now, if you expand that to 10 years, well, of course, that means an 18-year-old could legally have sex with a 10-year-old. Yeah, right. So my question is, how far is this going to go? But the other thing you must understand is that, okay, well, even if this becomes legalized, that doesn't mean that people are going to, like, have the same responses. Like, hold on, you're 18, you're fucking a 10-year-old? Hold on, dude. So if you take away the law, then more or less people are there's a type of frontier justice system that replaces it. Like, let's say if you legalize murder or legalize rape, most people aren't going to do these things obviously not because they're going to go to jail for it anymore, because there's consequences to it. Unless these people are completely isolated in their own fucking kingdom, like a desert island or whatever. Like, if your child is engaging sexually, whether consensually or not, with someone who is way older, and, like, people are going to get upset. And if there's no legal system in place, well, then you'll have, again, frontier justice. People take justice in their own hands. So really, people, the system of law and government is kind of like almost biological at this point. Whenever you have a group of people, humans, then there is a law and order that must be followed. Consequently, the governing body will try to defy it, which is known as corruption. And everybody's corrupt, as we all know, as we just discovered in the first article. So, what's really changed, even if they legalize this? What I see was going on is that the fact that this bill is even passing, which I really think is just, and I guess I really should look through this brief and look through the actual bill itself before talking about it. So I guess it states here explicitly, quote, this bill would exempt mandatory registration under the act of a person convicted of certain offenses involving minors if the person is not more than 10 years older than the minor and that the offense is the only one requiring the person to register. So, okay, let me read that again. This bill would exempt from mandatory registration under the act of a person convicted. So first, the person has to be convicted of sexual interactions with a minor. So that does not really change. But so there is conviction of sexual sex with a minor, as well as a registered sex offender. So it's just kind of an expansion. So it's an expansion of the Romeo and Juliet laws during the registration process, not of the conviction process. So so TFM says that the left memory holes and the left-wing media memory holes and the right-wing media uses clickbait and bullshit. Or in InfoWars cases, just it's hyperbole to the point where it's almost like just complete bullshit. And left wing they control the scene, so they could just kind of shut off attention towards a topic by simply not talking about it. So I guess that's kind of what this right wing, well, I guess you could say right leaning news journal here, named Jane. I guess, and to a certain degree, yes, it is reducing the penalties, but it's not it's kind of an elimination of like the registration process, which I think is just kind of redundant. And am I for really changing the law? I mean, I don't care. I don't give a shit. But with all factuality, if you say someone is convicted of sex with a minor, but then also registered sex offender. So let's pretend, okay, let's say in a few years in the future, we just get rid of the registry. Well, then there's still a registry of sorts, meaning that people who are convicted of sex with a minor are felons. No? So what's really changed? Like the stigma towards this designation has not changed. I would judge the same person equally, whether or not they're registered. Why the fuck does it matter? That said, well, one of the things going on is that the Gavin Newsom, assuming this hasn't really changed in the last 3 years. Again, this article is 3 years old. Is that almost 3 years old? September 4th, 2020. Is that Governor Newsom is scraping the absolute bottom of the barrel for such a small percentage of the population. I mean, think about it. What percentage of the population are actually pedophiles? Like, biologically speaking, it's a genetic dead end. Like, it doesn't make sense how this genotype would progress at any more than like a single-digit rate of the population. And moreover, it's kind of spectromatic. So, and I know people are gonna. I'm rolling my eyes as I say this, but there needs, factually speaking, put your fucking emotions aside and let's look at it for scientific purposes. Literally for research purposes, fuck. So, there's pedophilia, which I believe is defined as sexual attraction towards prepubescent children, like human beings before puberty, before sexual maturity. And then there's hebephilia, which is a preference towards people who are on either during puberty or in the onset of puberty. Like people who browse the teen section on Pornhub. Like, we're all drawn to youth to some degree. And I think I made a video about this many years ago, talking about how it's like a genetically failing hyperextension of not primarily male, but also manifests in females as well, to prefer young mates. Because, epigenetically speaking, well, younger people have healthier DNA and theoretically would produce healthier offspring. But obviously not before they've reached sexual maturity. And furthermore, because of the legal system defining the age of 18 to be quote-unquote mature, that's when you're legally adult. And then all of a sudden, then the scatterplot of deciding what is pedophilia, quote-unquote, and what isn't, is just decided at 18. Even though mentally, these people aren't much different than those who are 16 or 20. So, it's a bit arbitrary, yes. Do 18-year-olds make better decisions than 17 or 16-year-olds? Not in my experience. I sure didn't. So, it's... people like to throw these words around because of the emotional impact of it. Oh my god, California's legaling sexuality with minors. Which is not really the case, but it is moving slowly in that direction. And again, it just blows me away that the California governor thinks that there's anything to really gain from it. I don't know why they're just pushing these boundaries. Like, how many people are going to vote with this? So, on the other hand, maybe the progressive mindset is so progressive is that they look at these things and be like, they think like, oh, this can't be about promoting pedophiles. It's about inclusion and diversity and LGBT, and we need to destigmatize all these words flung at people who just simply prefer younger-looking sexual partners to be called as pedophiles. Which, to some degree, is this group of people do exist. Some people just like younger-looking partners, whether or not they are actually underage, we don't know. Again, the teen section of Pornhub is pretty damn big. And there is a great demand for skinny adult women that look a lot younger than they are. I thankfully, I don't identify with that. It's just like, it's messy. And people like to simplify the messy reality. And it's just, well, yeah, that's life. Law of large numbers. Yeah, so with that all said, I mean, like, yeah, this legal policy does raise eyebrows, and I'm just glad I don't live there. That's all I have to say. Oh man, shit. So, yeah, once again, here's the URL. I highly recommend you read this yourself if you're more interested about the topic. I encourage you to do this, even though I'm not reading it myself. You know, do as I say, not as I do, of course. It's read the fine print and don't let clickbait and bullshit and rhetoric from either side sway you. I really encourage you to look at these things and assess it objectively with your own understanding and at your own volition. Or don't just be a gullible idiot. I mean, yeah. Anyway, so next topic. Okay, so this is fucking. I don't get this. MSNBC opinion. Okay, so it is opinion piece. All right. Headline: Pandemic fitness trends have gone extreme. Literally. Subheadline: White supremacists' latest scheme to valorize violence and hypermasculinity has gone digital. By Cynthia Miller Idris, MSNBC columnist. So, okay, again, this is an opinion piece. This is one of a litany of all kinds of fucking articles talking about how, like, XYZ is now a symbol of white supremacy. Milk is a symbol of white supremacy. Which I guess is a reference to, like, American History X. That's a really great movie, by the way. Go watch it. I don't know, like, the OK hand sign. Do you guys remember that shit? OK hand sign is now a symbol of white supremacy because, like, okay, let me get OK hand sign. Oh, God, I'm still not used to this keyboard. White. So the OK hand sign is now a symbol of white supremacy. So because like here's the best part. So if you look, so the three fingers up here, that's W, and then there's a P throughout like the thumb and the ring finger. And what's funny is that, okay, well, 4chan just takes the piss by making a bunch of shit talking about how this is indeed a symbol of white power, and then white supremacy, and then the news just reports like, oh my god, look, 4chan incels are white supremacists, and they're confirming that the okay hand sign is a symbol of white supremacy. So it's just a feedback loop of someone makes a joke, and then the news takes it seriously, and then the basement dwellers of 4chan continue joking about it, and the news continues to assert that it's serious, and then people are just kind of like, they're talking to themselves, and then letting everyone listen in on it. Well, I guess the people on 4chan, they're just having fun, they're just cracking jokes about it. So I guess this is just yet another thing that's just being redesignated as a symbol of white supremacy. Because fucking reasons. Because the FBI needs to find new people to arrest and harass, because that's the only way they need to keep their jobs. Otherwise they get defunded. And this article later also talks about how it's a growing domestic terrorism threat. Even though we all know, I mean, there's only one group of people that's actually rioting and actually causing like chaos in the country. And you know which group that is, and it's definitely not white supremacists. Like these white supremacists, I mean, you fucking show me, say that, okay, well, there's no official confirmation of this anywhere else. Well, the news is talking about, is giving, again, disproportionate attention, just like how they're giving disproportionate attention towards Trump. Completely disproportionate attention to these small number of mostly uncoordinated lone wolf actors, being the occasional, angry white incel dude going on a shooting or whatever, compared to the mass chaos and billions of dollars of damage caused by race riots of a said minority that shall not be stated. It's just, and I'm not here to defend white people. I don't fucking care. What I do care about is the fact that there's no sense of objectivity here. And there's clearly a bias, and then almost everyone is listening to the media because they can't fucking think for themselves. And that's why we can't have nice things. So, and not necessarily listening to what the media says, because if you read through the whole article, yes, they are talking about things objectively and confirmably. But, again, the controlled narrative is through, again, the spotlight, memory holding. So, by selectively talking about certain things and not talking about other things, then these news media, these news companies, the big news media, if you will, mainstream news media, they control the narrative. Not by making arguments, but by saying things and not saying things, which are a form of action. Right? So, caption of this picture, quote, physical fitness and violent hypermasculinity have always been central to the far right. Oh my god. Oh, I need a sip of water. All right, let's read this dog shit article. So, okay, well, and AG sent me this article as well. This is more than a year old. But I think it's still relevant, and I think this is part of in the biggest big picture. You zoom all the way out, like fucking 0% zoom. If you go out to like the outer rings of the atmosphere and look down at this picture again, I think I see a greater trend afoot, and I guess we will divulge in that later as I proceed with the article. So, article states, as it appears the far right has taken advantage of a pandemic at-home fitness trends to expand its decade-plus radicalization of physical mixed martial arts and combat sports spaces. Earlier this month, researchers have reported that a network of online fascist fitness chat groups on the encrypted platform Telegram are recruiting and radicalizing young men with neo-Nazi and white supremacist extremist ideologies. Initially lured with health tips and strategies for positive physical changes, new recruits are later invited to closed chat groups where far-right content is shared. Physical fitness has always been central to the far right. In Mein Kampf, Hitler fixated on boxing and jiu-jitsu, believing that they could help him create an army of millions whose aggressive spirit and impeccably trained bodies, combined with, quote, fanatical love of the fatherland, would do more for the German nation than any mediocre tactical weapons training. Which is kind of silly. I mean, what uses martial arts in the age of guns? Anyway, in more modern times, far-right groups have launched mixed martial arts and boxing gyms in Ukraine, Canada, and France, among other places, focusing on training far-right nationalists in violent hand-to-hand combat and street fighting techniques. It's caught the attention of intelligence and authorities, especially in Europe, where the various reports have noted the role of combat sports and MMA in radicalizing and promoting far-right violence. A series of collaborative efforts between governments, national sports associations, and local gyms in places such as Germany, Poland, and the United Kingdom have introduced intervention and prevention programs. The U.S. is comparatively far behind, which would only become more and more problematic, especially since the phenomenon is growing in the country, building on the established fight club culture of MMA far-right extremists. The leader of a Maryland skinhead group, for example, once ran a gym to, quote, recruit and train white supremacists in mixed martial arts. Let's fucking look at some confirmation on this. Mel Magazine. Are MMA gyms run by the far-right hiding in plain sight? So, I guess, okay, just a real quick side note. So, the mentality of competition and aggressiveness, masculinity, these to some degree are associated with right-wing beliefs about self-determination, conflict, struggle, and triumph or consequent failure. These are all kind of right-wing ideas under this fucking definition of right-wing, being that anything that is not progressive, not communistic, not socialistic, not, I guess, dare I say, bitch mentality or victim mentality is considered right-wing. So I guess under this definition, yes. But my follow-up question is, what the fuck is the problem? So, these people believe that training yourself in martial arts, which is great for fitness and socialization and self-improvement and discipline and ultimately a step towards finding meaning in life, is going to be, they think that martial arts training is going to be worth shit in this day and age of warfare, which is kind of silly, but it feels good. And it's just, I mean, stockpiling weapons is a much more effective way to prepare for a quote-unquote race war, but of course, are they going to do that? Of course not, because that's how they get caught. So martial arts is something is just to entertain the masculine monkey brain within young men to believe that they're actually doing something for their own defense in this modern age, in a prospective age, prospective warfare preparation. So, anyway, yeah. So this article, I mean, it sounds like it's either written by, well, it is literally written by a woman. A woman who clearly doesn't do martial arts, or is probably physically fit at all, or even any like sports or any type of competition. So, you know, this is not saying that's a dismissal of her opinion, but rather is just something to keep in mind as to how the opinion even manifests in the first place. So, okay, now there's this one group of people from Rise Above movement, which sounds leftist as fuck, by the way. Unmasking California's new white supremacists. Yeah, like, look at fucking California. I mean, every action has an equal opposite reaction. People are going to fucking do this. You by imposing the bullshit policies that run California, you are planting the soil for the things to sprout against it. Like, duh, this is just like physics. Newton's third law. Come, please, use your brain. Anyway, And then, of course, then the response is to double down with more like hyper-progressive policy, which creates more dissatisfaction and more rebellion. And then voila. I mean, you just kind of created the problem. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Anyway, so the self-prescribed premier MMA club of the alt-right pled guilty to conspiracy to riot after the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. Yeah, what the fuck did these do? When these guys do? What violence? What damage did they cause? They're the biggest fucking pussies ever. Like, they are not a threat. And what's funny is that, okay, the actual threat is not talked about because, I mean, to find who rules over you, simply criticize who it is and find who it is you cannot criticize. So, yeah, might makes right, and the winner writes the history. So, or history's written by the winners. And simply the one who is most brutal or caused the most damage is the one who is the might that is right. You know, it's just an animal struggle as always. What else? This is old news. I don't really. Okay. Here's a juicy paragraph here. The intersection of extremism and fitness leans into a shared obsession with the male body, training, masculinity, testosterone, strength, and competition. Physical fitness training, especially in combat sports, appeals to the far right for many reasons. Fighters are trained to accept significant physical pain, to be warriors, and to embrace messaging around solidarity, heroism, and brotherhood. It's championed as a tool to help fight the, quote, coming race war and the street battles that will precede it. Recruits are encouraged to link individual moral virtues such as willpower, decisiveness, and courage with desired collective traits such as virility and manliness. This also works in reverse, with white supremacists encouraging potential recruits or activists to stay in good physical shape as a way of managing self-presentation in public, which is good policy to live by in general, regardless of whatever your fucking politics are. The neo-Nazi blogger Andrew Anglin advises followers that, quote, fat people should be required to commit losing weight if they are to stay involved with groups or in-person gatherings, noting that, quote, continued obesity shall not be tolerated. Apparently that's a fucking yeah, I guess that is anti-body positive. It's anti-progressive in some ways. Oh, God. With recruitment now moving from physical gyms to chat rooms, live-streamed fights, tournaments, festivals, and even combat sports video games, we're seeing extremist fighting culture being combined with an entertainment culture that already valorizes violence and hypermasculinity. Fitness, of course, is a staple and hobby for many people, for whom it is enjoyable and rewarding for brain health and physical overall well-being. Physical fitness channels dopamine, adrenaline, and serotonin in ways that literally feel good, intertwining those feelings with hateful and dehumanizing ideas, while promoting the concept that physical warriors are needed to create the strength and dominance to defend one's people from a perceived enemy, makes for a dangerous and powerful cocktail of radicalization. That's also the basis of literally all military, in case you didn't know. For those of us working to find better pathways to reach at-risk youth, understanding the ways that far-right groups recruit and socialize youth in ways that go well beyond rhetoric and ideas is crucial. Oh shit, what the fuck? Hold on. Alright, god damn. Alright, some stupid bullshit's happening, so I will have to take a probably 10-minute break, and stay tuned. I'll be right back.
Listen. I will not lie to you, I promise. Listen. Promise. Listen. I will not lie to you, I promise. Listen. Promise. you, I promise. Listen. Promise. Listen. Let me not lie to you, I promise. Listen. Promise. Listen. Not.
Alright, goddamn. Alright, that was stupid. Anyway, we are back. So to pick off where we left off. I'm sure a lot of, not just TFM, many people would say that people who vouch for equality are usually the losers. These people usually aren't very physically fit. So the difference between a loser and a sore loser is that a loser would be like, okay, well, I will try again. I still want to achieve X, because X is what the people who dominate over me have, and I will keep working to get it. Or the sore loser will just be sour grapes, like, you know what? Fitness is terrible. It's a demonstration of white supremacy. In fact, it is evil. So they start to demonize the attribute in which the people who win over them have, which is, I think, what's going on here. So I know there's kind of like maybe like an only tangentially connected thing compared to the phenomena before us, but nevertheless part of it. Anyway, so this is fucking repetitive news. Okay, what else? Moving on. So this is another one from Alcohol Gaming. This was very recent. June 22nd. Fear and Greed Index. What the fuck is this? Oh, so I guess it's a prospect of like aggressiveness and when it comes to purchasing. Well, trading. Okay. Okay, so headline: Ford agrees to $9.2 billion U.S. government loan. Interesting. Wow. So we're not only were we bailing out banks, we're bailing out auto manufacturers. Can you fucking believe this? New York. Ford and its South Korean battery manufacturing partner SK On have agreed to a loan of $9.2 billion from the U.S. Department of Energy as part of President Joe Biden's push to bring more electric vehicles. Okay, so it's just an ESG subsidy. Okay. Joe Biden's push to bring more electric vehicle production to the United States. Ford and SK's joint venture, Blue Oval SK, would use these funds to build 3 electric vehicle battery plants, 2 in Kentucky and 1 in Tennessee. Ford announced in 2021 that it would build electric vehicle and battery factories in the 2 states. At the time, the company said that they would invest a total of $11.4 billion in the project. If completed, it would be the largest single manufacturing investment Ford has ever made since the company's founding in 1903. According to the auto giant. Of course, the dollar was worth way more back in 1903. Besides the 3 battery plants, the site will include a factory to build electric trucks. The loan is conditional, meaning that Ford must still meet certain requirements before gaining access to the funds. Oh yeah, plata o plomo, silver or lead. Neither Ford nor the Department of Energy detailed those conditions. Also, the loan amount is up to $9.2 billion, but Ford could use less than that. The loan funds will support 5,000 construction jobs in the 2 states and ultimately 7,500 staff positions at the 3 plants, according to the DOE, the Department of Energy. The loan will be part of DOE's Advanced Technology Vehicles Manufacturing Loan Program, a $25 billion loan program to reduce U.S. dependence on oil and reduce carbon emissions. The Ford loan, if taken in full, will be significantly larger than the total of $8 billion that has been lent under the program since it was authorized in 2007. Ford previously took out a $5.9 billion loan under the program in 2009. That loan was fully repaid as of last year, according to the Department of Energy. General Motors agreed to a $2.5 billion loan under the program last year. The loan is part of Biden's bid to increase sales of EVs in the United States to reach 50% of new vehicle sales by 2030. So, okay, so it's just ESG once again. Oh, that's actually, holy shit. Huh. Anyway, so, distractions aside, yeah, ESG in full swing. Dangling a bunch of money in front of these auto manufacturers in exchange for, okay, well then you must do this, this, and this for me. So, I guess in the end of the day, ESG is really, it's about expansion of government power in exchange for pursuit of chiefly Western cultural ideals or moral ideals. Jerking yourself off about how fucking green you are. Whereas in reality, to make this happen, there has to be a lot of pollution. Now, again, as I've stated before, don't get me wrong, electric cars are cool. And I think they really have for the majority of car trips, especially in the United States, which are very short, people complain about, okay, well, the EV range EVs don't have very good range. Well, how far are you fucking driving every day? So, and more practically, like environmentalism aside, I mean, again, EVs are very low maintenance. Other than changing a battery every many years, which you don't have to, you just suffer the declining or continually shrinking battery life. I mean, EVs can be practical for a certain group of people. Again, different customers and different needs. So, I mean, I would just get one for the tax write-off if I had the money to, right? But I don't. Anyway, so, I guess I've already spoken my piece about the people who are opposed to new technologies or new things just because they are new, which is just as fucking stupid as the people who dive in head first without thinking to anything new, without consideration about how it would practically work. So, this isn't the first time that a big automotive, if you will, has been bailed out by the United States government. Well, not bailed out, just propped up with a bunch of fucking free money. Or excuse me, conditional loans, MGM. So, what's new? I mean, the only thing different is that, okay, well, EVs. And then it's just going to piss off people who think EV bad without really thinking about why they're saying it. And it's kind of a disruption to, like, the natural selection of the free market when it comes to technologies and different methods to achieve the same goal of automotive transportation. But, I mean, what's too shocking? I don't know. And alcoholic gaming, I hope this was worth it. Yeah. All right, next topic. From InfoWars. Breaking. Federal judge rules Biden regime likely violated First Amendment by coordinating with big tech to censor Americans. By Jamie White on July 4th. Subheadline, Biden federal officials and agencies also barred from making contact with social media companies to discuss censorship. All right, so before we continue, I mean, InfoWars. I mean, you know what to expect. They're kind of at the armpit of the internet. And I'm going to treat it the same way that I'm going to look at any news article. So, like, the headlines, this headline isn't really too salacious. It actually seems somewhat legitimate, and we'll see exactly how well they dug into the weeds and looking at the article as a whole. So, first header. A federal judge ruled Tuesday that the Biden administration likely violated the First Amendment by censoring the speech of Americans it didn't like with the help of social media companies during the COVID pandemic. Oh, plandemic. Now, even though I'm typically aligned with this narrative, there seems to be a bit of rhetoricality here. So, U.S. District Court Judge Terry Doty, in a 155-page ruling, blasted the Biden administration for leveraging Orwellian censorship against Americans during the COVID period, calling it a dystopian scenario. During the Corona period, perhaps characterized by widespread doubt and uncertainty, the United States government seems to have assumed a role similar to an Orwellian Ministry of Truth, Doty wrote. The opinion lays out how a wide range of topics were suppressed by the Biden administration in addition to the vaccines, including masking and lockdown policies, the Wuhan lab leak theory, the stolen 2020 election, Hunter Biden's laptop from hell, and criticism of Biden's other economic and foreign policies. Quote, this targeted suppression of conservative ideas is a perfect example of viewpoint discrimination of political speech, the judge noted. American citizens have the right to engage in free debate about the significant issues affecting the country. The evidence produced thus far depicts almost a dystopian scenario. Doty also issued a preliminary injunction with immediate effect against Biden administration officials and agencies like Health and Human Services and Federal Bureau of Investigation from making contact with any big tech companies to coordinate censorship efforts. Fox News, Breitbart News, Candace Owens, The Daily Wire, journalist Alex Berenson, and prominent frontline doctors speaking out against the experimental jabs like Doctors Simone Gold and Joyce Mercola were cited as victims of Biden-directed censorship in the opinion. The judge even cited Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a Democratic challenger against Joe Biden in the presidential primary, as one of the main targets of the Biden regime's coordinated censorship initiatives over his anti-COVID vaccine views. It's fitting this ruling rebuking the Biden regime's unconstitutional actions were handed down on Independence Day, and it's welcome news on this sacred holiday. It's fucking sacred, my ass. What does it even mean anymore? America's a joke. Anyway, so I don't fucking care to read this. So the greater issue here, or rather just not even an issue anymore, it's just an expectation that people should have. It's, again, like, going back to the cocaine in the White House. Like, the rules for thee and not for me. People are going to want you to, the government will always, any governing body, wants you to say as they do, but not do as they say. So, does this really shock you? I mean, like, I think the accusation of anything being quote-unquote unconstitutional is really losing its impact. I mean, yeah, government does all kinds of shit that's unconstitutional. And it's kind of your responsibility as I guess not just as an American in this context, but as any citizen of a government that has a constitution, to, well, maybe I shouldn't say it, but to keep the government in control of itself, and by any means you wish, because again, like, corruption is natural human nature. Everyone has skeletons in their closet. Everyone's full of shit, and it's how far does this and how much does this really need to? I mean, how much of this isn't obvious already? So, yeah. So, I personally, like, in public, I don't really care about free speech insofar as that I don't expect it. Moreover, like, most of the people you bring these up to and just talk about, like, most people just kind of mind their own business. Most people only care about their own bottom line. They don't care about politics. So if no one really gives a shit what you have to say, what's even the point of free speech? Why even talk? Just go on with your own life. So then I guess finally the message is out that there's something kind of wrong with these vaccines. And even if InfoWars says it, I mean, there's some validity to that suspicion, in my opinion. But there's always these assertions of safe and effective repeated by every single one of them, because they're all really at the behest of probably the threat of big lawsuits or losing their licenses. So really, who do you trust? Do you trust the competence of the medical establishment, the medical bureaucracy, or do you trust the intentions of people criticizing them? That's the choice is yours. Anyway, so I really don't care to talk about Ukraine, but again, since AG posted this, we'll talk about it very briefly. So, NATO summit: allies refuse to give Ukraine time frame on joining. Oh God. So, Daddy Zelensky here holding a Ukrainian flag from the destroyed city of Bakhmut by James Landale in Vilnius and James Gregory in London. Oh, Vilnius, what is that? Lithuania? Yep. Okay. Capital Lithuania. So, okay, subheadline states NATO states have said Ukraine can join the military alliance, quote, when allies agree and conditions are met, after President Volodymyr Zelensky criticized the absurd delay to accession. In a communique, NATO said that it recognized the need to move faster, but would not be drawn on a time frame. Earlier, Mr. Zelensky said that there seemed to be no readiness to invite Ukraine to NATO or make it a member. He is now in the Lithuanian capital of Vilnius, where the summit is happening. Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, accepts it cannot join NATO while it is at war with Russia, but wants to join as soon as possible after the fighting ends. But Mr. Zelensky, tweeting after Mr. Stoltenberg's comments. Oh God, I'm sorry. I was looking at that. Was distracting. Tweeting before Mr. Stoltenberg's comments said that the lack of a green time frame meant his country's eventual membership could become a bargaining chip. Quote, a window of opportunity is being left to bargain Ukraine's membership in NATO in negotiations with Russia. Uncertainty is weakness, he said. NATO might not have said when and how Ukraine might join the alliance, but diplomats emphasized that they had set out a clearer path to membership, and the onerous application process had been shortened significantly. The alliance had recognized Ukraine's army as was increasingly interoperable and more politically integrated with NATO forces, and would continue to support reforms to Ukraine's democracy and security sector. Diplomats also highlighted the creation of a new NATO-Ukraine Council meeting on Wednesday for the first time, which would give Kiev the right to summon meetings of the whole alliance. But the decision gave no sense of timescale. But the decision to give no sense of timescale will be seen as a setback for Ukraine. Even though the detail was always unlikely, Mr. Zelensky's decision to say that absence of a timetable was absurd only emphasizes diplomatic failure. Some member states fear near automatic membership for Ukraine could give Russia an incentive to both escalate and prolong the war. The focus will now move to what long-term security guarantees NATO members will promise Ukraine as an alternative to early membership. In the past, Western security pledges failed to deter two NATO Russian invasions. NATO allies hope a third round will be more robust and explicit enough to persuade the Kremlin that further aggression would be too costly. Addressing crowds in Vilnius later, Mr. Zelensky said, quote, NATO will give Ukraine security. Ukraine will make the alliance stronger. Mr. Zelensky also presented a battle flag from the destroyed city of Bakhmut, in the site of the longest and possibly bloodiest battle in Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The Vilnius summit comes a day after Turkey dropped its opposition to Sweden joining the military alliance. Turkey had previously spent months blocking Sweden's application, accusing it of hosting Kurdish militants. The country will now become the alliance's 32nd member after Finland, which borders Russia, joined in April. Both countries announced their intention to join NATO after Russia invaded Ukraine. A series of military packages for Ukraine were also announced at the summit on Tuesday. A coalition of 11 nations started training Ukrainian pilots to fly U.S.-made F-16 fighter jets at a center to be set up in Romania in August, officials said. In May, the U.S. gave the go-ahead for its Western allies to supply Ukraine with advanced jets, including the long-sought F-16s, a significant upgrade to the Soviet-era planes it is currently using. Ukraine had repeatedly lobbied its Western allies to provide jets with help with its recently begun counteroffensive aiming to retake territory seized by Russia. However, experts say that the training of Ukrainian pilots to fly and operate Western jets will take some time. Meanwhile, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu was quoted by Russian news agencies saying that Moscow would be forced to use, quote, similar weapons if the U.S. supplied controversial cluster munitions to Ukraine. The weapons release bomblets over a wide area and are banned by more than 100 countries over their impact on civilians. Mr. Shoigu said Russia had similar cluster weapons but has so far refrained from using them. Rights groups say Russia and Ukraine have already used cluster munitions during the 17 months of war since Russia invaded last February. So, in case anyone cares, what I've heard is that cluster bombs, they are bombs that are empty shells full of dozens or hundreds of smaller bombs. And I'm told that 1 in 10 are duds, meaning they don't blow up immediately, but then like after the war is over, years after the war is over, like little kids will find it among the rubble, say, oh, look, we got a new ball to play soccer with or some shit. And then it blows up, killing the children, years after the war was over. I mean, take what you will from that. Other than that, I don't really have much to add to this. I mean, I personally don't really think too highly of NATO. I think Western occupation really is just causing more problems than it's solving. And but of course, no superpower goes away quietly. So I guess this is just one of the. It's like, I forgot. I guess the death throes, or just like, you ever? Probably not many have experienced that. But imagine seeing like a deer that got struck by a large truck. And then the driver comes out to assess the damage and sees the deer just like bleeding out of its mouth, just like flinching on just trying to make its last moves before it dies. Like that just sounds like what NATO's doing right now. I'm personally disgusted by this entire conflict. It's just stupid, and I personally believe that the U.S. should just let go, like just let Ukraine get swallowed by Russia. Because starting another war with Russia, I mean, like, come on now. What the fuck do you think is going to come out of that? It's just fucking stupid. Just make it stop. But yeah, check out BRICS, by the way. I've been hearing a lot of commotion about the BRICS currency that's supposed to come out next month. I don't know how that's going to shake out. Next topic. I'm not giving you money. Okay, post-millennial. Oh, by the way, this was from BBC News, July 4th. No author specified. No, I'm sorry. James Landale and James Gregory. Okay, so next topic. The post-millennial. Written by Libby Emmons. Breaking: Biden calls up U.S. military reserve units to deploy to active duty in Europe in, quote, Operation Atlantic Resolve. Oh my fucking God. Oh, Jesus. Operation Atlantic Resolve is the official name for the unofficial operation supporting the war in Ukraine. A presidential action posted by the White House on Thursday revealed that the president, under his authority as commander-in-chief, is calling up U.S. military units to deploy into active duty in Europe under what is being called Operation Atlantic Resolve. It is the official name of the unofficial operation supporting the war in Ukraine and is in response to Russia's invasion of the Donbass region. Operation Atlantic Resolve has been funded over the European Deterrence Initiative and is intended thus far to strengthen NATO. The U.S. has military in Eastern Europe, but has not called on Americans to fight to defend Ukraine. Oh, gee. Quote, I hereby determine that it is necessary to augment the active armed forces of the United States for the effective conduct of Operation Atlantic Resolve and in and around the United States European Command's area of responsibility, President Joe Biden said. As such, he authorized the ordering of any active duty units of the Coast Guard to serve as a unit of the Selected Reserve. The Selected Reserve is the, quote, most readily available group of Army Reserve soldiers, according to the U.S. military. All members of the Selected Reserve can be mobilized in an event that an emergency arises and they are called upon to do so. Quote, in furtherance of this operation, Biden said, under the stated authority, I hereby authorize the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Homeland Security with respect to the Coast Guard when it is not operating as a service in the Navy under their respective jurisdictions to order active duty any units and any individual members not assigned to a unit organized to serve as a unit of the Selective Reserve or any member in the individual ready reserve mobilization category and designated as essential under regulations prescribed by the Secretary concerned, not to exceed 3,000 total members at any one time, or of whom more than 450 may be members of the individual ready reserve as they deem necessary to terminate the service of those units and members in order to active duty. President Biden is readying military forces to deploy to Europe. He made a promise to the American people in March 2022 that U.S. troops would not be sent to fight in Ukraine on behalf of that nation's borders or service to waging war against Russia. I don't know. I guess the reason this catches anyone's attention is because it's moving towards hinting that there might be a draft for the fucking Ukraine war. And yeah. Does that upset you? I guess it depends if you're of draftable age. So no, that's that. Who gives a shit? Okay, here's some grade A smooth brain shit right now. Question: should we dim the sun to help curb climate change? Oh my god. By Mike Bourbonnais, senior editor, July 12th. So, all right, what's happening? Late last month, when the White House released a report cautiously calling for more research into one of the most hotly debated theories for combating climate change. So it's not even a question of whether or not it's happening right now. It's not even like a debate. Well, okay, well, the climate is changing? Duh, the climate fucking changes all throughout history. So now let's fuck with the sun. Let's block the sun out. Because, the temperatures increase. The sea levels are rising a couple centimeters every 20 years. Oh my God. So the natural disasters that arise from that are probably less than that of blocking the fucking sun. So this is just yet another example of, just like ESG. Another example of people fucking things up whenever there wasn't even a problem to begin with. They're looking for problems to solve, making a problem up, solving it, and then realizing the solution causes way more problems than the initial problem. I don't know what you call that other than fucking stupid, but I mean that's just the state that we're at right now, apparently. So late last month, the White House, blah blah blah, climate change partially blocking the sun to cool the planet. While it sounds like something straight out of science fiction, interest in what's known as solar geoengineering has increased in recent years as scientists have become more pessimistic that humans will not reduce carbon emissions in time to avoid the catastrophic potential impacts of climate change. Solar geoengineering involves a variety of techniques for reflecting certain amounts of sunlight so that less heat reaches the planet's surface. The most promising potential approach, according to scientists, would involve using planes to release reflective particles into the upper atmosphere to balance a small amount of sunlight back into space before it reaches Earth. Oh my god. So not only are you probably going to kill if this actually becomes a thing, not only are you going to kill a large amount of plant life that is like for example, agriculture, because plants need sun to conduct photosynthesis, in case you fucking forgot. But it's also a bunch of particles floating around in the air, and it's probably going to come as probably going to become fallout. Non-radioactive fallout, but I mean dust just literally falling from the sky, which means it's terrible for air quality. And we already have problems with air quality and a big dust storm happening in New York City. So you're causing more natural disasters by trying to fix those natural disasters instead of just keeping your hands clean and fucking off. Oh my god, these ideological retards. This is why the West is fucked. Because of people like this. Researchers are reasonably confident that solar geoengineering could work. Massive volcano eruptions over the past century have served as natural experiments, proving that reflective aerosols can meaningfully reduce global temperatures, but concerns about the potential risks of tinkering with the Earth's natural processes have meant that no known real-world experiments in man-made solar geoengineering has ever been conducted, other than weather balloons released by a startup in Mexico earlier this year, a stunt that inspired the country to ban all research on the topic within its borders. At least the fucking Mexicans have their two brain cells to rub together. Why there's debate? Because solar geoengineering wouldn't remove any carbon from the atmosphere, no one argues that, is carbon even a fucking problem? CO2 is what plants breathe in. CO2 plus CO2 plus sunlight plus water equals glucose and oxygen and water. That's photosynthesis. So, because solar geoengineering wouldn't remove any carbon from the atmosphere, no one argues that it could be an alternative to the green energy transition. At best, it's viewed as a means of temporarily staving off the dirtiest weather effects of climate change, or the direst weather effects of climate change, while the world carries out the lengthy and expensive effort of decarbonizing the global economy. A group of leading climate scientists has called for a worldwide ban on solar geoengineering research, arguing that it poses a, quote, unacceptable risk to the climate. They worry about potentially catastrophic side effects that would occur if humans start tinkering with the climate, the risks of conflict that would arise if nations begin competing to improve their own weather at the expense of the neighbors. How about the fucking sun getting blocked out because and then plants dying? Hello? God damn these fucking retards. And the danger that geoengineering can be used as an excuse to slow or abandon the green energy transition. Supporters say that these hypothetical risks pale in comparison to the catastrophe that experts say will come if we don't intervene to stop the Earth from continuing to get hotter. Shut the fuck up. They argue that simply cutting emissions won't be enough to stave off the worst, and the scientists can't understand the full risks of geoengineering unless they're allowed to run experiments in the real world. So here's what's troublesome. So people, they don't challenge the premise, they just challenge the conclusion. Supporters, going green won't be enough. Pretending that climate change can be solved with emissions cuts alone is a dangerous fantasy. By David Keith, a professor of applied physics and public policy at Harvard, to The Guardian. Scientists can't understand the dangers of geoengineering unless they're allowed to research it. Quote, it is so late in the climate fight. It is so late in the climate fight that some solar geoengineering may be a good idea. We don't know unless scientists are able to do the hard work to find out. By Gernot Wagner, Washington Post. We need to buy ourselves time to make decarbonizing work. Quote, in the case that man-made warming turns out to be much faster than currently projected, putting up a stratospheric sunscreen will provide humanity extra time in which to develop and deploy low-carbon energy technologies and devise ways to reduce the extra carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Ronald Bailey Reason. Skeptics. Now, this is really disappointing. So, quote, even if solar geoengineering can help deflect the heat and improve weather conditions on the ground, it's not a long-term solution to climate change. It sends a message to the world that we can carry on over-consuming and polluting because we will be able to engineer our way out of the problem. By Chukwarm Merije Okereke from the New York Times. So, I mean, let's not forget just a couple years ago, the deep freeze in Texas. So whether or not climate patterns, so it depends on how far, okay, how many data points are you working with? You can't, you could establish you could inductively establish a trend with 2 points, but that's just 2 points. It's very likely that many other points in your data could skew the other direction. Or just could kind of just be this noisy line that doesn't really have any rhyme or reason or any given direction. There's more CO2 in the atmosphere during the Ice Age. So why the fuck are we going to block out the sun? Because, just to turn the temperature down a couple degrees. And cause what in the meantime? Okay. Okay, here's a good point here. The potential side effects could be worse than anything climate change will do. Quote, there's no shortage of potential unintentional consequences. For example, some areas of the planet, like the tropics, might overcompensate and cool down too much, while other areas, like the polar regions, will cling on to warmth. Messing with the atmosphere could also mess with natural climate systems. By Mirjam Guskin from Vice, of all places. That's ironic. Any science that gives a nation such immense power would inevitably lead to conflict. Who would be in charge? What country gets to decide whether the sun is going to be blocked or to what degree the sun's rays will be dimmed and for how long? Who gets the godlike power to decide where on Earth the sun would continue to shine and which regions would get to see their sunlight taken away at any given time? By Tom Wrobleski, SI Live. Okay, the dangers of climate change aren't an excuse to take dangerous risks. Just because we're desperate doesn't mean suddenly that making solar geoengineering is a good idea because the risks are so immense. Okay, this is a good one. So Pablo responds, blocking the sun makes solar panels less effective, making us rely more on fossil fuels. Oh, man. A Tiger 18 comments, I don't get it. This government can't control the inflation, border crisis, the oil reserves, our spending, the NASA budget, the deficit problem, and the COVID crisis. Really, do you expect them to control the sun's rays? Our politicians can't even come to agreement about balancing our own budgets to stop the deficit. American Patriot replies, very interesting. Let me remind you of this quote. Winston Churchill once famously observed that that Americans will always do the right thing only after they've tried everything else. Oh my god. Oh, this is so fucking stupid. I don't know what else you want from me. I think I already said everything I needed to. Okay, so let's go to some shitty news. All right. Okay, dailymail.com. When was this? So the 10th of July. Okay, headline. My 14-year-old transgender son took his own life after telling us he no longer wanted to be a girl. This is Noah's story. So, goddamn, my throat hurts. Be right back. I need to get some water. Okay, all right. So, the sub-headlines, Noah O'Brien, 14, died in January after revealing his new gender identity. He was denied access to gender-affirming care at Westmead Children's Hospital. For confidential support, call the Lifeline 24-hour crisis support on 11. Okay, so this is UK phone numbers. So, these are very vague headlines. I don't know what the fuck is really going on. Denied gender affirming care. So I guess what. So this sentence here is implying that, okay, well, transgender people are oppressed because they don't have access to whatever fucking. Oh my god. Oh, okay. Hold on. The plot thickens. So, Noah O'Brien, who was born a girl called Lily, died in January this year. The 14-year-old had written his parents a letter 6 months before telling them he identified as a boy. Okay, so give me a moment. So, a young girl named Lily decided to become a boy at barely like onset of puberty age. And decided to do that she was named Noah. Okay, so then Noah writes his parents a letter 6 months before telling them he identified as a boy. Noah's mom, Lauren, told the ABC's Four Corners of the devastating loss of her son, and that after he was worried about returning to school in his new gender identity following the holidays. Quote, my husband gave him CPR and called the ambulance, and the police arrived about 4 minutes after we called them, and they took him to Westmead Hospital, where he stayed alive until 6 in the morning. That was about from 11 o'clock, so we got 7 hours to actually say goodbye. Miss O'Brien said when Noah first told her about his new gender identity, she thought that he was being influenced by a friend or someone online. But the longer the time went on, we just saw no, it was definitely just him. Who he was, she told the program, Noah started to restrict his eating in a bid to delay the onset of puberty. What? He was admitted to Westmead Children's Hospital in Sydney's West, where he was discharged after a day with the recommendation to seek support for gender issues. Mrs. O'Brien went to his GP to get a referral, but did not realize that he would be pushed down the waiting list because he had started puberty. Noah O'Brien, pictured, died in January this year. He had written his parents a letter 6 months before telling them he identified as a boy, but was worried about returning to school after the holidays. His mother, Lauren, said he was not given access to any gender-affirming... Oh, hold on. Okay, fine, let's keep reading. Noah's grandmother, Rose Marcia, told the program, Lauren rang places, went to the doctors, tried everywhere to get help, but it was just like the doors were closing in her face. No one was responding to her call for help. Noah was treated again for anorexia at Westmead Children's Hospital and was assessed by a social worker who suggested that he needed to be seen by staff who could help with his gender dysphoria. And that was halted by a senior staff member outside the gender clinic who said clinicians needed to focus on dealing with his anorexia in isolation. Four Corners reported that Noah was, quote, effectively denied any specialist gender support by the hospital. Noah was increasingly anxious about returning to school in his new gender and took his life in January. Quote, I feel like he didn't get any help or support in making that transition to become a male, his grandmother said. Quote, we did all that we could. Lauren did more than anyone ever could, but we just didn't get any help from anywhere that could help us. The management of Westmead's Children's Hospital declined to speak for the Four Corners, issuing a statement expressing their, quote, sincere condolences to Noah's family. Quote, due to patient privacy and confidentiality, Sydney Children's Hospitals Network is unable to provide further information about his specific care, they added. New South Wales Deputy Premier Prue Carr said Noah's case was, quote, unbelievably tragic. Quote, no one should feel like that they're in that position, the acting premier told reporters on Monday. Quote, we obviously need to make sure that what is quite a vulnerable cohort of young people in particular is protected and supported, she added. So I'm willing to believe that the majority of people who declare themselves as transgender are actually kind of full of shit. And a lot of them just kind of use like this threat of suicide to just get what they want. But dare I say congratulations, but this Lily/Noah child, well, he/she wasn't all talk. I know it's too late, but yeah. Lily/Noah really meant it. Now, so again, and as with a lot of like the transgender issues that I've covered in the past, I'm really kind of split because teenagers have killed themselves for all kinds of stupid reasons. But on the other hand, did Noah kill himself because he was a stupid teenager, or because that his psychological issue was so bad he'd rather die than undergo female puberty and become an adult woman? We can't really know. So in that aspect, and I kind of cringe whenever I hear the term like gender affirming, because it's entirely up to you to affirm what gender you believe you are. it's up to you about how to express your gender identity. Chiefly the way you dress, the way you act, the way you talk, the way you move. You move as you walk. Who fucking knows? There's many different ways to express it. There's always a spectrum of like masculine and feminine presentation, whether you are male or female. You could be kind of you could be stylish about it. You could be aloof. You could be arrogant, or you could be trying to glamorize like being fucking non-binary, whatever the hell that's supposed to mean, right? Which is cringe as fuck, but you literally can do it, and it's not illegal. So, what I think is going on in this poor child is that biologically she just, whether or not this child would grow up to be a lesbian as a female is kind of hard to say, and we don't know. That's only, I guess, is only partially relevant. But from what I understand of gender identity problems, is that there's an incongruence between a desire to present as one form physically and the what is actually possible within one's own body. Because the brain kind of starts at the body, doesn't it? Except for unusual circumstances like this. This Miss/Mr. O'Brien here is probably obviously a very rare case, like a single-digit minority case. I could even hypothesize that if Lily, the girl that used to be, had a twin sister, they both have insecurities. But then But then, if let's say if the twin sister of Lily decide, okay, well, I'm insecure because I'm skinny and I have small boobs, so then she goes out of her way to go undergo public plastic surgery to give her a curvier figure. But then Lily decides that, okay, well, I have a body image disorder, but I don't care to be a curvy woman. I want to be a boy. I want to grow up to be a man. So then Lily becomes Noah and declares herself as transgender. So I think we're putting too much weight on identity, because one's identity is a cacophony of a number of things. And my personal advice to any of the microscopically small group of people that are actually transgender that might be watching my show, which I don't know, fucking whatever. I guess my advice to any not deaf ears that might fall upon my voice is that there's many other things in life other than who you physically present as, your genitals and your outward appearance and your social role as a male or female. And I encourage people to build their identities around their actions, rather than something intrinsic to them that is not in their control, like their chromosomes, their DNA, and the physiological manifestations of their appearance. Like you can't control what your natural hair color is, but you can dye it, you can style it, you can just not care. You can't control your genes, but you're completely in control of what you do with your body. Unless you're having a constant seizure, then obviously, that just wouldn't be relevant. So you can't control your epilepsy if you have epilepsy, but you can prepare for these situations by taking precautions and not putting yourself in situations where it would be a big problem, or seek treatment. So same thing with your biological sex. And even though we all have some kind of dysmorphia of some sort, like we all wish we had more of this or less that. We all wish that we looked a certain way or that way. A lot of times, sometimes these things change, sometimes don't. Sometimes we stop caring about them. Sometimes all of a sudden we thought we didn't care about it until all of a sudden, oh wow, now it's such a big deal. So I don't think the quote-unquote gender-affirming care is only going to say anything other than, well, it's up to you on whether or not you want to become male as a female, especially before puberty. So if you want hormones, I mean, hit me up, bro. Is that really quote-unquote gender-affirming? Like, so, and as I've said before, the biggest hang-up for the types for transgender medicine is fertility. So if the technology progresses to a point where people can undergo a physiological transition to the other sex and then be fertile for reproduction, as well as to minimize as much as possible the health complications of such, then this problem would pretty much evaporate. Like, no one would be against it. Except for a small group of people who think that it makes Jesus cry or some stupid shit. I mean, well, fucking who cares about what they think? So I don't. Usually these people, again, because they construct their identity, their existence entirely around their gender, their biological sex, which is again something they can't control. These people are often miserable because they aspire to be nothing else, and that's why the suicide statistic for post operational transgender people is so high. Is because, okay, well, now I've transitioned, but I still want more. I want to reproduce as my desired sex. I want to have more of the secondary sex characteristics of my desired sex. And I cannot get those. So I'm just left here to stew in my anger and do nothing else with my life. And that's how it leads to suicide, severe depression, like actual clinical depression, drug use, alcoholism, which is a part of drug use, and eventual suicide. Or repeated hospitalizations for things not even directly related to the surgery or hormones. And that's something people have to fix on their own. You tell them this, but then it's up to them if they want to, like, think about it. Like, okay, well, instead of fixating about things I can't control, why don't I worry about things that are? Okay, now I've transitioned. Okay, well, that's it. That's all I can do. So time to go pay attention to something else. Or I've transitioned and you know what, this isn't what I wanted. And if I'm going to be physiologically healthier as my biological sex, then I will transition back. So, but of course I hear this from neither party. So the right goes on its fucking autistic script about men are women, which is just a dismissal of the problem entirely. Which for most people, that's probably the correct answer. But for a small minority of people, well, that's not satisfactory. And the leftist idea is that, okay, well, the minority must rule over the majority. In fact, the minority must become a majority. So because of this small number of people, we must halt everything. We must stop all functions of society to accommodate these small minority of people that often can't be helped anyway. So neither of these, okay, the right proposes no solution. And the leftist solution is just completely not only counterproductive, but also probably causing more problems than it solves. Just like the blocking the sun. So it's clearly like the left's idea to block out the sun because global warming. And the right says, well, don't fuck with the sun because then plants are going to die and then lots of people are going to starve. And it's probably going to get way too cool, and then people are going to fight over it. It's a solution looking for a problem that doesn't exist that's just going to cause bigger problems. So, yeah. So there's my 2 cents. Yeah. So then you might ask, well, AVC, well, if your child says that he or she is transgender, how would you respond? I don't know, honestly. I'd probably try my best to oppose my child from transitioning. Well, okay, no, before that. The biggest question is the technology. So let's say if I were Scrooge McDuck, I had all the money in the world, and I could just take my child to a week of treatment, and then voila, the child is completely functional as the opposite sex. Well, then what reason do I have to oppose it? And especially if there's an option to go back. Like, I'd fund it a couple times, and then once the money starts running out, I'll be like, no, you need to fund it yourself. The technology as it is today, I would say no. And I would tend to ask, okay, why are you alive? I mean, duh, I created you. Hypothetically, yeah, okay, duh, I'm your dad. Okay, so I created you. So maybe a better question is, what gets you up in the morning? Let's say we do go through with this. You're going to lose your ability to have children. You're going to incur this very large medical expense. There's going to be medical complications. Is this really what you want? What do you value more? Your outward presentation to other people of your gender identity, or your physiological function? If your problem is that you're suicidal about it, well, there's way worse things to happen that couldn't make you consider suicide. And if you can't put up with this, well, how are you going to put up with that? So I would say no, and then I would continue to invest time and money into my child, into just taking the kid out for like a walk, or better yet, a bike ride, and just talking about them. It's okay, well, you're stripped away of everything. There's no money. There's no need for work. What do you do with yourself? So, like, if I were born female, I'd probably, first of all, I'd already be married with children. I mean, like, the girl AVC is pretty hot. I mean, I'm not going to show pictures for obvious reasons, but I mean, she's a babe, okay? She'd probably already be married with kids. And then, other than that, I'd probably be doing mostly the same thing. And why is that? Well, because I've constructed an identity outside of being male. And I guess this parallel universe female version of me probably did the same thing, because hopefully she's remotely as smart as she is. But I don't know. Women can be fucking dumb sometimes. And even if I were born female, I'd probably a few steps ahead of the curve. I really don't think that much of my personality would be different, honestly. Maybe a bit more passive, maybe a bit lazier, maybe a bit less in control. But still, again, ahead of the curve. And, like, I guess that's just kind of like, let's say in some hypothetical universe, what I think would go on, what happened, here's a better example. Let's say in the wonderful world of hypothesia, let's say we could snap our fingers and solve the transgender problem by magically going back in history and converting every single human life in existence and flipping the sexes. I firmly believe we would still see the same number of transgender people. Because I once again believe, like, I'm integrating all these factors laterally. I believe that for the desire for becoming transgender comes from everything but gender itself. Usually a mixture of things. Gender attitudes, social circumstances, I think, is the biggest one. I think less than 1 in 10,000 of the transgender cases, of people reported being transgender, are doing it purely because I just don't know why. I'm just unhappy, completely, like, I'm just unhappy with what I see in the mirror, and I want to be the other sex just because. Because going from the statement, your body is smarter than you, I think the brain adapts to the body first, because the body exists first. The brain isn't the first organ it develops. I believe first it's your asshole, your mouth and your asshole. It's like, so the zygote is fertilized and it becomes like 2, 4, 8, 16, 32 cells, and it forms like a tube, right? And the tube is like, so one end is the mouth and the other end is the anus. And then the second organ, I believe, is the heart. So once it gets to like a few hundred to thousands of cells as a human zygote develops, it's the heart of the digestive system, because that's the basis of metabolism. That is like that, and then as the nerves develop, well, then the central nervous system slowly emerges from that. Let's see if I can get some visual reference. So let's see if there's any. So, okay, here's an egg, and the egg splits, and then there's a blastocyst. Like, it's just, is that a tube? And the spinal column, the heart, and the brain. So, Yolk sac. Is this for... What? I guess I can't find any confirmation on when exactly the brain develops. But I firmly believe that, for the most part, the brain responds to the body. And then it goes in a feedback loop. And the brain sends information through the spinal column down to the rest of the nervous system. And then, using the 5 senses, the brain receives the information and then processes it, and then it sends another bit of information out the nerves, which is your conscious nervous control, to change the stimuli going back into the brain. So, literally, changing your body will change your brain. Changing your body means that you either open a door here and then close the other, and then that changes your behavior, which is a change of mind, which affects your behavior, which affects your mind, and a feedback loop. So, to some degree, you can train yourself. You'd be surprised how much of your brain can be trained to do things or not do things. And that is, again, my best advice for something, especially for the minority of cases that are truly uncurable, of the ethereal disappointment of being born as the opposite biological sex that you want to be. And I think that's really all that really could have been done to prevent Mr. O'Brien's suicide. So, I don't know if that's anything new. I don't know why I clicked on this. I'm just curious what the hell they're talking about. I guess here's like a little comedic relief. What other more tranny shit? Oh, this is funny. We'll touch this last. I don't think really care. Oh, this is funny too. Okay, what is a surefire way to really put a man off of you guys? Really the biggest relationship turnoffs. One is when you're in a relationship when you're with friends and they become distinctly less pleasant to you than when you're alone, like making fun of you and then making jokes at your expense which they normally would not make. Having had it in more than one relationship, like what is that about? A second said this girl said "sawi" to me trying to be cute, and I instantly lost interest in her. The other one was quote over the top solipsism. The whole "I don't perceive it that way, therefore you perceive it the way you perceive it cannot be valid" mindset. Loudly empathizing with every cause and group on the planet, but treating people in their personal lives like trash. Mentioning their ex constantly. Denigrating and emasculating men who show emotions is honestly one of the most fucked up things anyone can say to do to another person. So this is just Reddit shit. Popular threat comes along a survey from the Pew Research Center of more than 6,000 Americans. Okay, here's a really interesting part. So when broken down by age group and gender, the number increases 63% among men who between the ages of 18 and 29, a huge 12% increase since 2019. According to the latest U.S. Census Bureau report, the average age a man now gets is married, a notable increase from just under 24 back in 1950, with the average woman now getting married as 28. A survey found that while U.S. average adults was looking for dates, and a relationship is less often following the pandemic, women accounted for the least interested group. According to the data, Over 49% of adults were looking for a committed or romantic relationship or casual dates in 2019, but that number fell to 42% in 2022. Men specifically made up 61% of those looking for love in 2019. Men specifically made up 61% of those looking for love in 2019. And by 2022, only half of men were seeking relationships. Women, however, only made 38%, and only 35% of women reported they were looking to date or... Oh my god. Yeah, okay, well, take what you will from that information. Very, very suggestive right there, isn't it? Oh, man. Okay, real quick. So quick topics. I mean, I need to fucking wrap up the show. This is taking longer than usual. I don't care about Kendall Jenner. All right, so this is good. This is a short article. Controversial influencer Dylan Mulvaney turns up at LA Film Festival after fleeing America over safety concerns amid Bud Light debacle. More endorsements gone wrong. Celebrity endorsements go further back than anyone could possibly remember, and the hawking often pays off for both the star and the company they're promoting. However, sometimes things go astray with marketing campaigns. Trans activist and influencer Dylan Mulvaney fled to Peru in 2023 after no longer feeling safe in America. I came here to feel something, and I definitely have. I have done shaman ceremonies that were like 10 years worth of therapy. It was wild, she said of her time in Peru, during which she visited Machu Picchu. I've seen a lot of llamas. The people here are so kind. I feel very safe here. It's a little sad that I have to leave my country to feel safe, but that will get better eventually. What the fuck is with this typo? Dylan eventually returned to the USA and turned up Outfest, a LGBTQ plus film festival in Los Angeles on July 13th. Following her trip to South America, Dylan said she's, quote, feeling like my own best friend again. The trip down south comes after a calamitously ineffective partnership with Bud Light. In March 2023, Dylan partnered with the beer brand to promote a March Madness contest, and her face was even printed on Bud Light's famous blue can. There was a backlash almost immediately, particularly from conservatives who felt this was, quote, wokeism and, quote, gender propaganda. Although the cans featuring Dylan's face were only made for her and not available to the general public, critics lashed out. Social media was littered with videos of people throwing Bud Light and other Anheuser-Busch products in the garbage. Music star Kid Rock made headlines where he shot cans of Bud Light with an assault weapon. Also, amid the fallout, Anheuser-Busch's stock shares plummeted. A few months later, Dylan took aim at Anheuser-Busch, claiming the company went completely silent when her criticism reached a fever pitch. For a company to hire a trans person and then not publicly stand by them is worse, in my opinion, than not hiring a trans person at all, because it gives customers permission to be as transphobic and hateful as they want, she said on June 29th. And claiming the beer giant had abandoned her and never reached out to amid the backlash, she was left with, quote, a loneliness that I wouldn't wish on anyone. After hearing her criticism, Anheuser-Busch released a statement claiming it's, quote, committed to the programs and partnerships that we have forged over the decades with organizations across a number of communities, including those in the LGBTQ plus community. The statement continued, the privacy and safety of our employees and our partners is always our top priority. As we move forward, we will focus on what we do best, brewing great beer for everyone and earning our place in moments that matter to our customers. So it sounds like fucking Anheuser-Busch and Bud Light just can't make up their mind on whether or not they want to fucking suck Uncle Sam's dick for the ESG money. Maybe the checkbooks just aren't balancing, or maybe there's a ongoing argument of whether or not they are balanced by accepting the subsidies and promoting Dylan Mulvaney. And Dylan Mulvaney sounds like a fucking woman. Thinks like a woman. So I'd say that's a pretty successful transition if you ask me. Other than that, I mean, I hope that was entertaining. Alright, last retarded article. Conservatives planning to boycott from the Independent News. Conservatives planning to boycott Maybelline after seeing bearded individual being their influence. Oh my god, this isn't even like a fucking... This isn't even like an actual tranny. It's just some dude with a bald dude with a beard who looks like a fucking Muslim just putting on makeup. It's a fucking clip in his beard. What the fuck? Oh my god. This is the West for you. The peak of Western civilization. Oh my god. And here's the fucking trad cuck response. Okay, so, quote, the whole non-binary work culture is seemingly taking over women's brands like Maybelline by storm. For the most part, it seems that this is quite acceptable. However, conservative women are not happy with having such individuals, quote, taking the spots of women. There's now a call for boycotting them as the effects of conservatives boycotting Bud Light and Target seem to be working. Previously, the company was already in hot waters. According to the Daily Mail, Twitter users expressed their displeasure with the makeup company Maybelline for collaborating with Dylan Mulvaney. One user state, quote, the latest fools to employ Dylan Mulvaney are makeup company Maybelline. Get woke, go broke. Furthermore, another user was calling for a boycott with the hashtag boycott Maybelline, claiming that Maybelline's choice of Mulvaney as their sponsor was unacceptable. So I guess Maybelline's like, you know what? You guys hate woke shit? Oh, we're going to double down.
Prime Day on Amazon, so why not see if Maybelline has any deals going on? And look at that! Super Stay Vinyl Ink is 30% off, and my favorite colors are in stock and ready to ship. My Amazon order arrived the next day, and here I am, filming a makeup review. And baby, check out this color and shine. It's so comfortable, and it will not budge or smudge for up to 16 hours. Let me know what you think, and shop Maybelline Prime deals for 30% off right now.
Libs of TikTok recently posted a video of the ordeal. They state that this is the new advertisement from the said makeup brand. However, this information is riling up conservatives all over the internet. Following that, one user claims that there will be a massive boycott against Maybelline, similar to the one Bud Light was receiving. In addition to this, there are several comments that are possibly transphobic to non-binary individuals. One user states that the brand will now be in association with less attractive individuals. Furthermore, there's a saying that the brand is strong enough for a woman made for This is a good one. The fact that satire and reality are no longer distinguishable is extremely disturbing. And yes, even Orwell didn't see it coming. Following that concern, reality's stranger than fiction, isn't it? Anyway, following that, conservatives are going on a rant about this drama. Another Twitter user claims that they can no longer distinguish sat. Okay, yeah. I truly wonder what woman looks at this and thinks, "Great look! That shiny red would look so good on me with my facial hair too." For some, they're speculating that the brand is targeting non-binary and trans individuals rather than biological women. This is after several conservatives are commenting that women would definitely not show interest in their brand endorsing their makeup as someone who has a full beard. So, my question to Maybelline is like, okay, what percentage? So I guess these companies are just, they've got more money than they know. They've got more money than they know how to play with properly. So they're thinking, okay, well, what can we do with this extra money? Okay, let's experiment in a new demographic. It's just for that tiny demographic of people who actually wear this makeup, who aren't biological women. And it sounds like it's a big risk. And if I guess once the pain starts to, once the heat starts to get turned up on them, once the people like rebel against by like, ew, I'm not buying Maybelline, fuck them. Even though if I wore makeup, I mean, I wouldn't give a fuck. I would only care about the quality of the product rather than the brand's association. Like, I generally hate Apple because of how they design their products, but if their design changes, my opinion would change about them. So, I'd imagine if I were a woman, or if I were some weirdo like this fellow, I would look at the makeup and be like, okay, was the makeup good or does the makeup suck? In terms of performance, why does the brand matter? Because the brands are consistent of all kinds of people. And anyone's favorite brands, like, there's stupid people in there you fucking hate. But if the product's good, you're going to keep using it. So that's just the silly thing about boycotts. But yeah, we'll see. The free market always returns to homeostasis, and I guess we'll find out. Really, all Maybelline has to do is just change their advertising campaign, and I think that a lot of the problems will go away. I think a lot of these companies' marketing departments are just overfunded. That's what's going on. I don't know. Whatever. I'm tired. I don't give a shit. I got other things to do. Yeah, thanks for watching. Both of you, whoever, probably mostly Alcoholic Gaming, but whoever's watching this, please send me topics. It's really getting boring to do solo shows, and I can't fucking organize myself to like invite people ahead of time and set that up because I suck. Or just don't watch my show because it sucks. I understand. I wouldn't watch it myself. I'm just here to just listen to myself talk for the most part. So, 2 hours and 30 minutes. I'm surprised the show went on that long. So, thank you, and I guess see you next week.